Thank you, everyone, for coming to today's show on Unlocking Excellence with Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack. We have Gaurav Guerrera back. He's the Principal Product Manager here at Reltio. Welcome, Gaurav. Appreciate you
Thank
here.
you.
So the rules of the webinar, the show, is keep yourself on mute. Questions should be asked in chat, or feel free to take yourself off mute if you need to, and then ask the question then. And the show is going to be recorded as usual and posted to the Reltio community. So no worries, it's being recorded right now. It's a little smaller than I hoped, but we have a jam-packed month, the rest of this month into next month, and then a couple more in April that have not been scheduled yet, but will be. But a few things. One is today's show, Unlocking Excellence with Reltio Life Sciences. And then on some of these, we have our Reltio Learn courses. So Reltio configuration via API Vilt. So just certainly look at some of those. I won't mention all of those today, but you can see them on the schedule. On the 28th, we do have a show on around auto merge, unmerge, sorry. And then on the 6th, we have one of Fast Track MDM on excellence leveraging the Reltio way. And then on 14th, enhance security, so reduce cost, the power of Reltio and private link. And then on the 28th, we have efficient, empowered, engaged leveraging Reltio UI for data stewards. And then we have a couple more that have not been put on the calendar that I'm really excited to put on there very soon. So Rob, I'm going to stop sharing. That's all my announcements for today. I'm going to let you take it away.
Yep. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen and you should be able to see a presentation deck that come up.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you for joining this webinar on Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack. I'm Gaurav Gira, as you can see, and I'm really excited to explore the critical role of data management and unification in life sciences industry. Right. Before we jump into things, I just want to set some context and set some agenda. So we'll look at what's today's data management and data management requirements and challenges are for the life sciences industry. How the fragmented data impacts their business goal. All right. So and how we solve that through the life sciences velocity pack. Right. So the key business initiatives that we solve using life sciences velocity pack, and how that clean trusted data that gets generated out of those velocity packs or the Reltio MDM solution help solve those pain points around customer, patient, clinical, product domains across the industry, right? So we'll go through those details in detail. We'll look at under the hood what comes along with the velocity pack. We'll have several demos, so I will be jumping around from the presentation deck onto the system to show you the actual system live over here. And feel free to stop me, ask any questions if you have. Right. So that's the agenda. Um, so yeah, let's jump into it then. Talking about the industry trends and challenges. Right. So the world of life sciences, as you know, is filled with some of the most highly connected, complex, and diverse data out there, right? So these companies were among the first adopters of MDM or MDM-like solutions to support various use cases around incentives and compensation management, territory alignment and management, to even certain regulatory compliance reporting kind of thing, right? So while those types of use cases are still valid for the industry today, the companies are also facing new and ever-growing challenges, both in data management perspective as well as in the industry perspective as well. And these new and there are new innovative ways to solve these problems that these life sciences companies are coming up with, right? And in this industry we are seeing a large a number of different trends that are driving a lot of investments in data and data management solutions, and I want to cover a couple of those trends. The first one is around the digital everything. Uh, a lot of these pharma companies are accelerating their investments in digital. It started a few years ago when there was heavy emphasis on getting more customer centric, driving that omni-channel type journeys, right? But digital promotions and more recently the acceleration due to COVID have increased investments in, for example, remote health monitoring, e-promotions, and things like that. The other trend that we see is the challenges in compliance. It's starting with GDPR to more recently a number of companies also following suit, especially in China or in Brazil or other places where data privacy type of compliance and needs have increasingly driving the need to have more robust data management solutions to support those compliance requirements, right? Which also brings us to the next trend around the importance of patients. And in this process, as direct to consumer spend increases, and as the awareness of diseases and treatments increase among patients, we are finding that patients are also becoming an integral part of a customer set and for these pharma companies, and they are trying to create better experiences for them, right? So with patients also starting to engage more, companies have had to develop solutions and capabilities to address that engagement and their experiences. Right. So these industry trends and the resulting impact on business processes bring challenges around the data management practices and interoperability of such data across the divisions. Right. So the reusability of the data becomes extremely important. When you have HCPs, HCOs, products which are core to these business, and if they are not accurate, reliable, and accessible, the sales marketing teams cannot target the right physicians, for example, right? They cannot provide them the right kind of drugs if they do not know if those physicians have the licenses to sample that or to prescribe those to the end patients, right? Which means that it impacts the right kind of treatments reaching to those who need it, right? And when these healthcare practitioners and patients' data are inconsistent, incomplete, or even inaccurate across systems, they don't receive information that they need, whether it in person or in digital channel, right? So at the same time, if you're running clinical trials, investigator and patient recruitment becomes critical and crucial. And if you do not have these kind of data collated from various sources, you know, standardized, then the process breaks down, right? So there's a lot of bad things that can happen if you do not have the right kind of data, and this is where Reltio for Life Sciences play a very critical role, right? And every enterprise runs on core data, which needs to be accurate, interoperable, trusted, whether it's customers, products, right? And how you serve those customers, empower your employees, kind of depend on how good or bad the quality of your data is, right? So, and hence, this is what we tell to all our customers is when you need trusted data, trust Reltio, right? So this is how we kind of help our customers, right? So on the left hand side, you can see a picture wherein a lot of these life sciences companies have their first party data, which is spread across multiple systems, whether it's a Salesforce application, an SAP application, if they're running clinical trials, then there's a CTMS application, right? Uh, and they can collect all these variety of data into Reltio for the various from various systems, right? But at the same time, Reltio for Life Sciences can help standardize, collate, cleanse, deduplicate that data, as well as enrich that data, as well as verify that data against sources like NPI and DVA. We recently also launched MedPro integration. So if you want to have that curated data from MedPro, you can enrich those data for your HCP, HCOs use cases as well, right? Which would then drive the various business initiatives uh, in your systems, right? So whether it's within the growth for HCP experience segmentation, whether it's efficiency around compliance, clinical trials, patient engagement, or even things like IDMP compliance, right? And this is where I'm going to focus my presentation as well, wherein each one of these various domains, right, whether it's within the commercial domain, wherein you're trying to improve customer experience, uh, you know, driving engagement with your patients who are your, end consumers of the products, clinical trials for product discovery, or even IDMP compliance, right? So these are the various use cases that I'm going to show in my demo, and we're going to focus on these four use cases in detail, uh, right? But before I jump into those pieces, technically what velocity pack is basically a packaged solution that solves one or more of the business initiatives that we saw in the previous slide, right? And there's just one life sciences velocity pack. I want to clarify that, which includes all the domains, wherein if you're talking about the HCP, HCOs, or any other uh, type of customers that you interact with, like IDN, GPOs, affiliations and relationships amongst them, uh, patient product, if you're talking about IDMP compliance or use cases around market basket analysis, that domain, even things like clinical studies, site, investigator, all these domains are readily available within the same velocity path, right? So that's the piece of the data model. And we just don't stop over there, right? If there is a need, we also provide those pre-built integrations with NPI, DEA, or even Metro that works with these velocity packs out of the box. And then we have the additional configurations like RDM lookup values, which I'll show you. Uh, Match rules, UI, and cleanse kind of rules are also pre-built as part of the velocity pack itself, right? And to add to it, our professional services team, along with our SI partners, we have a prescriptive methodology of implementing these Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack, which makes sure that we take an incremental approach of making sure that you get value out of your MDM, investments that you're making through Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack, and we make sure that you have that first value milestone within the first 90 days of you getting the tenants. Right? So before I jump on to the other pieces, more details in the velocity pack, I want to take a pause and see if there are any questions, and then direct my presentations based on that.
Nothing in the chat as of yet.
Okay, that's great. Um, okay, so what I'm going to do is, I want to start with the HCP experience use case within the commercial operations. But before that, let me jump onto a system and show you under the hood what we have. Right? We saw that velocity pack picture, and I talked about the various domains within that. Right? So here's that view of the various entity types, as we call it, that you get, right? And what you're looking at is a console application, right? And this console application is a tool or an application that a configurator or a system administrator would use to configure, control the various knobs and buttons that you see as an end user on the application, right? So this is where let me jump onto the console application itself, right? So this is where an administrator would come and configure the system, right? What we are going to focus on is the data modeler, which is where you'll see all the various domains. But there are other tools and applications available for you to configure those tenants, whether it's UI, workflows. By the way, workflow is also included as part of the velocity pack. There are a few workflow rules that come out of the box, right? So jumping onto the data modeler, this is where, as I said, you'll see all the entity types pre-configured for you, along with the various rules around, the attributes, the survivorship rules, as well as the match rules, right? And the first thing that we're going to focus on is the HCP, or the healthcare provider or professional kind of a customer. But as you can see, there's GPO and IDN and the relationship amongst them, which which make up that commercial domain, for so to speak, right? And then there are other entity types as well, like clinical study and site study, which will come to those once we talk about it, right? So let me jump onto the presentation mode once again and focus on the commercial piece first, right? Um, so here, I'm going to take an example of an HCP experience, but then there are several other use cases wherein existing customers have tried to solve for in the commercial domain, whether it's within HCO, but HCP experience is a critical one that most of our customers try to solve as the phase one of uh, their journey in this MDM space, right? And this is critical because most life sciences companies or even healthcare companies have these so-called uh, patient portal, right, wherein they want to engage with patients directly, but at the same time they also want to make sure that whatever data that they're presenting to those patients, including their the information about the doctors or the physicians who are going to take care of those patients, if that data is not accurate, then patients are not going to get the right kind of service. If the addresses, for example, is not available, the phone numbers are not valid, if they do not have registered their specialty, taxonomy, those kind of information is not readily available as part of your directory or the physician directory, then the experience that you as a drug seller to these physicians or your patients who are going to consume the drugs, if they are not going to get great experience interacting with these physicians. So the first thing that people try to solve for is they have the right kind of data for their physicians, their affiliations, and the other informations around specialties, whether or not they have the right kind of licenses to prescribe certain medical, certain medicines is something that needs to be taken care of, right? And yeah, this is what I kind of showed in the system as well. This is our data domain for the commercial operations, HCP, HCOs through the relationships, and then there are additional pieces like integrated delivery networks and the group purchasing organizations, which is where your pharmacies, your payers would interact with. These are the people who would derive, buy in bulk from the pharma product from the pharma customers, right? So this comes out of the box as part of the velocity pack. Um, at the same time, what we have done with Reltio for Life Sciences is there there are rule-based deduplication or matching algorithms. At the same time, we have also pre-trained machine learning models as well for data duplication, deduplication, or match merge kind of scenarios, right? So this is a unique feature, a differentiator that we have for Reltio for Life Sciences pieces, right? So what I'm going to do, okay, before I jump onto the system and show you an actual use case of an HCP and how we gather the data, these are some of the sources that we integrate with. We have something called as data tenants and data tenant subscription services, which are again pre-built as part of the Velocity pack. So in case you want to do verifications against DEA data or NPI data, then those integrations are readily available out of the box. These products are add-on top of the Velocity pack, but if you need, these can be provided and they can run pre-integrated once you have this in your landscape, right? Same is the case with our recently launched Metro integrations, right? So Metro is another partnership that we have worked on, wherein you can gather data for HCOs and HCPs from various sources, whether it's state license information, the CDS, AMA kind of sources. There are like 9 or 10 different sources from where Metro um, would collate data. They will do their own verification. They will also give their own master ID, so to speak, and also indicate which is the best version that you should use in case you're not able to, identify the best version. So they have their own way of, pre-mastered data, which you can then enrich your first-party data that you can get into your Reltio from your own applications, right? So here are some of the capabilities that we provide as part of the commercial domain. So let me jump onto the system.
Hey, Gaurav, before
And
you do, I just want to
y-
make sure Jason's question's answered.
mhm,
Because he asked, can you list out what third-party data sources are supported out of the box? And you mentioned MedPro. So this slide kind of answers some of
right.
that. Okay.
Yes, that's right. So as I mentioned, we have pre-built integrations with our data tenants that supply data verifications for DEA, NPI 340B. Metro system was just recently launched. We also have an ongoing partnership with IQVIA. So, if there's need be, we can work with IQVIA to get you the IQVIA data as well. Locate, anyways, is something that we use already for address verification PCs, right? So these are some of the addition,
Okay.
third-party enrichment tools that we already have as part of our offering.
Hey, Gaurav.
And
Yeah, I'm just looking at another question that's kind of related to my question as well, which is it looks like the DEA, the NPI, and the 340B are
Mhm.
still formed or crafted as data tenants, which get
That's right.
refreshed. Somebody's question was, how often do they get refreshed? And then my
Yep.
question is, in terms of MedPro and IQVIA, are they also formed as data tenants, or are those online in integrations?
Yep. Great question. So DEA, NPI, and 340B are all data tenant offerings, and these get refreshed on a different time period. So if I'm not wrong and my memory serves me right, then DEA data gets a weekly update, NPI gets a monthly update, monthly on 17th of every month, I believe, and 340B gets a daily update. So our data tenants are refreshed on a daily basis for 340B. Right. As for Metro systems, our integration is through our Reltio Integration Hub platform. So we have developed a preset recipes that are pre-integrated with the Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack for HCP and HCO. And these are batch integrations. So you have the flexibility based on your contract with Metro as to you can run these batch jobs on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis or even on a daily basis to get your data refreshed from Metro. Right? Additionally, there is also a proactive push from data. So once you have enriched your data from Metro also tracks that if there are any updates happening to the data that you have already enriched, then those updates are pushed proactively from Metro into your tenant. So those kind of capabilities we provide through a batch integration, RIH based recipes for Metro.
it's great. And there's lots of
On
other
IQVIA?
questions.
Is it one key?
Yes, IQVIA is one key, and I believe it's through the data tenant subscription as well.
Great.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
let's keep going and then we'll ask some more questions here at the end if that's fair. Just want to make sure we get through the
Yeah.
demo.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to jump through on a healthcare physician data over here. As you can see, there's a lot of information available, and this is what you get out of the box, right? And one good thing with this Relative for Life Sciences Velocity Pack is if you are an existing customer, or rather if you are a prospective customer and are you're going through that sales process with our accounts team, right? And they're showing you certain demos, right? The application that you see as part of your demos for Reltio for Life Sciences, that is the exact application that you would get, when you get your tenants or once you sign the contract, right? So there's no difference between what you see in the demo as well as what you get out of the box, right? And this is what I'm showing over here as well as a pre-built content that you will also get when you get those tenants. So you don't have to configure uh, those tenants. Day one, it's ready for you to load the data and consume the data out of it. Right. So here, what you're looking at is a healthcare physician data. The data is organized in so-called facets, right? So these different boxes that you call, we refer to them as facets, right? So these are organized like demographic information, addresses, if there are multiple identifiers, and this is where, the consent and the data privacy kind of information uh, is collected from multiple applications. So if you have like running a CRM website, or rather a CRM a website, a clinic, uh, a brand website, or a mobile application, and your consumers or your HC, physicians are logging into those applications and providing you consent, you can collect all those or collate all these data from those various sources and have a single view of, how the physicians would want to interact with you, right? And this is where this really becomes a critical aspect for you to have as part of your compliance for GDPR, or any kind of data privacy, as well as consent kind of compliance, right? Affiliations play a critical role, and this also is collated from one or multiple sources, and then there are potential matches, and I'll come to that as well, right? So here's our view of the various sources from where the data has come in, right? As you can see, each one of these different sources are highlighted with different colors, right? So we have a website which has contributed certain data like name and things like professional designations. So this is where we assume that the physician would have logged in into your brand website and registered himself, right? There's additional data coming in from, for example, Metro. So based on the name and the other credentials that physician provide, you can then enrich that data from Metro, or even contribute data from Salesforce. So each one of these applications are clearly identified, right? And then we have these various rules that work through to identify those duplicates, and then the survivorship rules, so-called survivorship rules, kind of determine which attributes amongst these various data sources, for example, should survive and should become that part of the operational value and contribute to the golden record, as we call it, right? And then there are various types of rules that you can configure, and which are pre-configured, but also available for you to modify within your tenant if you like. So recency, aggregation, these are some of the rules that have been already configured, right? And then the critical piece that comes in is as part of the pre-built match rules. These match rules could be rule-based configurations, or it could be machine learning uh, models that are pre-enabled for your tenants. Right? These also work in the background to identify the duplicates. They also consider various attributes and present that to a data steward to take in a decision whether they want to merge one or more of these records, or they want to mark those as not a merge and keep them separate for whatever reasons. Maybe they are not confident that these two records uh, are actual duplicates, or they need more information to be able to determine whether these records are duplicate, right? And the other piece that I want to kind of indicate over here is what you're seeing is a presentation of that data in a UI format, right? But behind the scenes, there are these real-time APIs that are running, right? Which make sure that what you get data that you can consume this data outside your application in real time as well, right? So if you want to present this data onto your website or to your call center applications, for example, or mobile applications, you can readily consume our Reltio APIs, and those APIs would also give you the same information that you see over here, and you can then present into an application, whether it's website or call center, right? So, and again, both these informations are in sync, in the sense that what you present on the website will also be seen as what you see over here, because it's the same set of real-time APIs that are running behind the scenes, or what you're going to consume for, right? Uh, does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Just let me know when you're ready to answer some of these questions. We can keep going
Yep.
until, okay.
Yeah, I'm not looking at chat, so if
Yeah,
there is anything that
no, I can start.
yeah,
Let me ask a few, and then
yeah,
then we
let's
can
do that.
go. So, with regard to Unify, can the pre-trained individual ML model be used for an existing tenant already populated with customer data?
Um, so right now, so what we are working on is these pre-trained models have been trained on the data model that we have as part of the velocity pack, right?
Yeah.
But we also understand that these pre-trained machine learning models need to work for our existing customers who are not on the velocity pack, right? So what we are working on right now, and I'm sure in next few weeks you will see a new feature coming out where you can map the set of attributes from your own data model that you have defined within your tenant to the velocity pack data model so that behind the scenes the machine learning models would pick up the same attributes that you have configured and determine the duplicates based on your data model and not on the velocity pack. This is something that is work in progress, and in next few weeks you'll see that feature coming out where you're able to map your data model against the machine learning model for it to use.
Great. And then this question's been asked two or three times. So, can the velocity pack be applied to an existing tenant, or if they've already configured it in a way like this, how does it apply for today?
Well, so all our new customers would be automatically getting the Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity Pack, right? And for the existing customers, right, uh, what we have seen is our existing customers also they start using MDM applications in an incremental approach. So if you have your HCP and HCO model already available and you're using it, right? But you also want to use, for example, clinical trials or patient kind of data model, then we can provide you those data models separately and you can deploy it on your tenants, right? If you're going to use the existing tenant itself, right? But let's say you want to use a separate set of tenants for example, for patient or for products, so to speak, right? In such cases, you will get new tenants, and in those new tenants, these data models would already be available for you to use, right? So hopefully that answers your questions. Whether for existing customers how they can utilize the data models from the velocity pack. Right now, we do not have an automatic or an automated upgrade process, so to speak. So if you were in an earlier version of the velocity pack with, let's say, just clinical domain, and you want to now add the product domain, that's a manual effort that would be required, wherein, as I mentioned, we can provide you those configurations and you can plug in into your existing tenants. But at the same time, we are also working to have an automated approach that you can upgrade from one version of the velocity pack to a next version of the velocity pack, and the delta is handled through that automation.
All right. Two more questions and we'll keep going. Is the
Yep.
costing model fixed per use or what's kind of that look like?
Well, it's a subscription based product available, right? In the sense that when you sign a contract with Reltio, you get a set of you get a set of dev, test, and production tenants, right?
Okay.
And you sign a contract of, let's say, 3 years, and all those three tenants would be provisioned for you with the Reltio for Life Sciences Velocity pack. There's no additional charge on top of the base license fees that or the subscription fees. Um, so
Got it.
yeah.
And then how often is DTSS refreshed? I think you might have answered that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so as I said, DTSS is a technology that we use to integrate a data tenant with your tenants that you use for mastering the data. We call it as the customer tenant. But the data tenant is refreshed, as I said, on a monthly basis for NPI, daily basis for 340B, and on a weekly basis for the third one, the DEA one.
Great. Let's keep going
Yep.
and then I'll ask
All right.
after.
Yeah. So next, I want to talk about patient which is um, one of the top priority, for a lot of our life sciences customers. They are investing a lot into developing. So, for example, life-saving medicines, or reducing patient churn, or to get higher reimbursement. So they are investing a lot in terms of improving the consumer experience, right? And for that, they need accurate, trusted, reusable, and governed data, right? So at the same time, the healthcare data is also surrounded by highly complex industry standards, like the HIPAA standards, or HL7 fire standards, or if you talk about compliance regulations, then IDMP, right? And these need a way to operate, and these companies need a way to operate within the boundaries of these standards and regulations, right? Uh, Otherwise, if they are not, then patients, or even the healthcare professionals, or even life sciences professionals, they cannot get the right kind of information at the right time, at the right place, right? And if you want to enable your patients to gain access to their health records, and actively engage with you as participants in the care, then you need to be aware and be compliant to such regulations, right? So there are various use cases, that we have seen life sciences customers solve for, and they get these data from various different applications in various different variety of formats, right? So for example, if you're interested in the demographic information, and that demographic information can come from various sources, like your CRM, or an engagement platform that you might have, or a recruitment platform that you might have. If you're running patient support systems, then obviously you're going to collect a lot of the patient data for eligibility determination, right? Through those patient support systems, right? If you're running brand websites and asking patients to come and log in into those websites, then it becomes a great source for you to collect that patient demographics data, right? You can, for example, collect their communication preferences, privacy information, even medication data coming in from various other sources like claims, or even CTMS if you're running client, or other clinical trials. Labs data becomes a critical source if you're running specialty medicines, and the physicians are reaching out to you for special prescriptions being filled for these patients requiring critical care. Right? Interactions is a critical information if you are trying to solve patient 360 uh, kind of use cases, right? So different information around the episode of care, or any kind of interactions that a patient might have there with their physicians, with pharmacies, or even with you directly, become a critical information for you to solve for those patient 360 kind of use cases, right? And when we talk about our existing customers, how they have solved for various, or what kind of use cases they have solved for, are around two or three different natures, right? One is, one of our customers is managing over 10 million patient data collected from various sources, first party as well as third party sources, to run efficient campaigns as well as outreach programs, to be able to provide the right kind of care and right kind of education to their patients, right? So that's one use case. The other piece is, a lot of our existing customers run patient assistance program and education program. So one of our customers has a mobile application, right, in which they publish a lot of personalized content about the medication, the care, uh, you know, what kind of lifestyle that their patients should adhere to in order to have a good life, is something they provide to their patients, right? And they gather that information, right? The other piece that I learned very recently was during the during the COVID and the aftermath of COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs, and that's why they could not continue to have their insurance payments out, right? So, and one of the life sciences companies, they were providing these, the insulin for diabetic patients, right? And these insulin, if you go through that insurance plan, they could cost like a couple of $1,000 per month for your monthly subscriptions, right? But since a lot of these patients lost their insurance, they started an assistance program, a prescription assistance program, in partnership with a non-commercial pharmacy, right, wherein they were able to provide discounted rates as well as a differentiated insulin medicines, right? But at the same time, what they did was they wanted to make sure that the right patients are getting those medicines. So they had the eligibility criteria based on their income as well as prescriptions provided from their physicians, right? So this is how they kind of also gathered additional information about those patients, right? So it was a gateway of assisting these patients, right? And the other use cases are around, if you're running clinical trials, then obviously you need subjects and you want to onboard those subjects, the right kind of subjects, to go through that care plan that you are going to provide to those patients through the clinical trial phase, right? So these are some of the use cases that we have seen, and there are a lot of different data that is getting gathered from various systems that becomes important that the patients get the right kind of care. Right? And to look at briefly the data model, here's a simplified data model for that person or the patient. We're calling that as a person entity type, which can have different roles, in terms of what kind of interaction you are having, whether it's a patient, a consumer, a subject, for example, if they're participating in a clinical trial, they could also act as a contact or a caregiver for an existing patient. So things like that, right? Um, the other piece, which we did not talk about in the previous slide was around the reference data, right? So across all the domains, we are providing extensive reference data, as you can see in the patient domain, the number of lookup values that we have. And the other piece that we have done more recently in our February release is improved entity resolutions, again with pre-trained machine learning models. This is still in the EA phase right now, but even for person or patient kind of domain, we have these machine learning models available for deduplications of data. Right. Hopefully this all made sense. I can quickly
Hey,
show
Gaurav,
them. Yep.
real quick question I think might clarify for the audience is when you first showed us the data modeler, we saw
Yep.
probably, I don't know, 10 to 12, yeah, there they are, entity types
Yep.
listed in here. And I
Mhm.
assume all of these are held and captured in the overall life sciences data model that's in the Velocity Pack, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah,
So,
this is what. Yeah. I
so then
clarified again. Yeah.
So then on the
Mhm.
slides, when you're showing us these little sort of submodels that have one, two or three entity types and the location entity
Mhm.
type, those are just sub parts, right? Submodels of
That's
the
right.
overall data model that the Life Sciences Velocity Pack holds, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. And again, this is one reason is I didn't want to kind of complicate or the slides over here, so I kind of broke it down, right, so that it's easier to understand as to what when we talk about commercial operations or even the patient, what all things that you should care for when you are going through the implementation, right? So in case of person, or patient, you would typically care for a person, the associated physicians, or their healthcare provider, and if they're participating in clinical study, then the clinical study only, right? Rest all is not useful for you if you're just focusing on solving the patient kind of use cases.
Right. Right. So this is a focused look at that part of the model, but in theory, you could sort of zoom out and see the entire model with all the entity types and all the relationships in it.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So here's an example of a patient, Rob Williams, right? As you can see, there are multiple roles that he has, like a patient or a member. Maybe this could happen because in one system they have acted as a patient, but if you're bringing data from a claims management system, then this is an additional role that comes in, right? And then there are additional things like demographic information. Something that we also capture is things like medical conditions, which becomes important when you are doing outreach programs or education programs, patient assistance programs, right? So some of these information really becomes useful for you to collect from the first party as well as third party systems. We also enable you to collect things like the medication information. Privacy and consent is all throughout the system that you will see is consistent. And this was consistent in the previous example that we saw for a healthcare physician. Right? Uh, there are additional details around providers. You can have the family information as well in case you want to build something called as household. All right, or you can have things like caregiver for this patient. So all these different information coming in from various sources kind of give you that 360-degree view, right? If I'm not wrong, this should also have interactions in it, right? Not this. Okay, maybe some other profile had interactions. So this kind of gives you the complete data or a 360-degree view of patient, and then you can have the right kind of business initiatives running to to make sure that these patients get the right kind of care from the right sources, and you also make sure that the population is getting the better health. Right. So in the interest of time, I will quickly run through a couple of slides on different use cases that we solved for along with patient and PHCP experience. The first one is the clinical trial management. Right. This is something that we launched earlier last year, which is around giving our CROs or pharma companies who are in that discovery or pre-commercialization process to gather, collect data for the clinical trials. They can recruit the right kind of subjects. Uh, they have identified the right kind of sites as well as the investigators who would perform those clinical trials. Right? They need to also make sure that all these data are compliant according to the regulations, so that when they submit their the submissions to FDA or IDMP, so to speak, they are complying to those regulations or the standards as per that, right? So again, the whole solution is to kind of gather data from one or multiple systems. I think I have a slide on that if I'm not wrong. Sorry. So this is the overall data model for that clinical operation piece. As you can see, this is just that piecemeal uh, subset of the data domains that we saw for the clinical operations, which include things like study site. HCP can have a different role over here, the investigator, and then based on their relationship with whether it's study site or clinical study, they can have different roles like principal investigator or a study site principal investigator, a director, so to speak, right? And then the HCO can have multiple roles, whether it's a facility, wherein the study site is located, right? There's an additional entity type for organization, which with a specific role for sponsorships. So these are some of those organizations, whether it's the government or a private sector who is actually sponsoring those studies, and then the actual medicinal product or a drug or an intervention that comes out of that clinical study, which goes for that submission or approval for FDA. Right. So these are the various entity types that are essential for clinical operations. We have seen our customers implement one or more of these entity types to start with, and then progressively they add new domains to the same clinical operations over here, right? And the whole approach over here, or the whole uh, outcome that we want our customers to achieve, is to have, for example, decentralized clinical trials, efficient way of site selection, and an efficient selection of investigators as well as patients. I think patient is missing. There's an additional um, relationship with patients as well, in this case, right? And the whole outcome over here is, as I mentioned, to identify the right kind of study, the patient, as well as to be able to run your clinical trials in a smooth manner, right? And lastly, there was a lot of interest in the product piece as well, especially around IDMP compliance, right? So with our January, or rather February of 2024, we have released the new domain for product, which includes various entity types, and I'll talk about those entity types for you to go through that entire process of FDA submissions or submissions to IDMP for your drug approvals, right? And again, the problem over here, what we're solving is product being a very complex process, requires data from one or multiple sources, whether it's in internal sources or external sources, right? So here is that representation. So if you have a regulatory information management system out of your ERP, there's a CTMS application for your clinical trials. If you're sourcing data from an external systems like MedDRA, or if you're running a document management system, uh, these all different applications become uh, provide you critical information that needs to be collated, deduplicated, standardized before you can give give those applications to FDA or IDMP for your drug approvals, right? So this is where Reltio for Life Sciences can help you duplicate, collate, standardize those kind of data across different sources from various systems, and provide you a unified, simplified, and a compliant way of getting that data, right? And when it comes to the data model itself, as you can see, it's a really complex model anchored around medicinal product, also known as drug, which is where you will have things around authorizations, indications, even market, any kind of regulatory approvals that you will get is around the medicinal product, right? But then IDMP also uh, enforces through their standards that you also have uh, the right kind of packaging information available. You also uh, inform things like the pharmaceutical, or the indication, or rather the administrable products, also known as pharmaceutical products, along with the ingredients and substance, right? So these are all the various entity types that we have introduced to for you to comply with those IDMP or SPORE data principles. SPORE stands for the Substance Product Organization and Reference Data pieces, right? At the same time, what we have introduced is a notion of a product group, which can handle uh, around things around brands, right? So if you have brands and sub brands of products, and you want to assign different products within those brands, then product group is a very efficient way of doing that, right? At the same time, your product group can also uh, act as a product family, right? So if you want to collect all the products based on for example, based on therapeutic areas, right? Identifying those products, let's say for pain management or for diabetes, right? So you can collect all those within the product family of that therapeutic area, right? So this is where the notion of the product group kind of helps you manage that M2M relationships. So we can have product groups representing a brand like an Advil and having medicines or products assigned to that. At the same time, that same products also assigned to a different product group or a hierarchy of a product group depending on the therapeutic area. I hope that made sense. I can show you an example if there is an interest, but I can stop here and see if there are any questions.
Gruff. So
Yeah.
that's a good one. It looks like there are so many questions that if you're open and if others are interested in this, we can have another session just an Ask Me Anything. Uh,
Yeah.
so basically what he'll do is he'll kind of go high level, 5-10 minutes about what this was about, because we won't be able to do it for another 2 or 3 weeks. But then we'll ask these questions that were asked. So if you guys are interested, put plus or something like that, and we'll make sure to have just an Ask Me Anything live, to where you can ask Rob anything about this particular show. Because there's so many questions, we're just not going to be able to get to them in the next 3 to 4 minutes. But anything else you wanted to
Oh,
add, Gaurav? Yeah.
yeah. So what the other piece that we can do is, maybe we can collect all these questions that we have,
Yep.
or even some other questions and write a blog. I'm sure there are several questions because we have covered a lot of material in a very
Yeah.
short time. Each one of these domains could act as has can have its own session, so to speak. But the reason I kind of collected everything into one session was wanted to make sure that these are some of the key takeaways that people get, right? One is that there's one velocity pack which has all the domains: commercial, clinical, personal, product, right? It
Mm.
has machine learning models for entity resolution of HCP as well as person, which is key differentiator for us. Something that we could not talk about is the reference data, the hundreds of reference data available out of the box for your the various use cases mapped to various sources. So you don't have to invest a lot of time building those reference data according to your various sources or use cases. And then lastly, integrations, as I mentioned, are pre-built with NPI, DEA, MedPro. If there's need be, it's pre-built for with the velocity packs. And so these are some of the key takeaways that I want you to take away. I know there are a lot of questions based on these. I can work with Chris over here to have a follow-up session, and meanwhile, I can also write a blog to answer and address all the questions on community.
Yeah, we'll definitely get these answered, and uh
Yeah,
I'll push Gaurav to do a live session because there's just too many questions to get through in the next 2 minutes.
yep.
But thank you, Gaurav. This was really great. A great introduction to this velocity pack. A lot of interest, a lot of questions. So we'll definitely get those done. But at the end of this, whenever you leave, please give us your feedback. As usual, your feedback is a gift, and we want to make sure that we get you what you need when you need it. But thank you everyone for coming to this show. Until next week, I hope to see you guys there on the next show. Rob, again, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for
Thank you,
coming,
everyone.
and see you next time.